FYI.
Okay, well, and I think we have all mostly repeat players here.
Nick,
So,
do you have questions today?
sorry.
Oh, of course, always.
Okay, Nick.
So I noticed there's just a couple little kind of more like not accounting errors, but like grammatical and things in the TA. I'm sure they will be sussed out as they get finalized. But a couple little things like there is a block out definition, but there's no block in definition in 2H.
I don't think there ever has been because we didn't touch that. Hold on.
I mean, it says like from block out to block in, but I just noticed
Well,
that
I think because block in is not different by aircraft. Let me see. Sorry, I just got to scroll through here.
All right. See if I can find my other notes here.
I'm just going to tell Terry I liked it better when he had his video on and I could see him. I like seeing other people than just Kimberly.
Yeah, well, yours isn't on either, miss.
Oh, hang on. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, there's Terry. I like it much better when I can see people other than just, oh, and I get to see Nick too. Yay. I like it much better this way.
Come on, Jamie.
We know Joelle can't. She's driving today, so.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. I'm on vacation.
You
Yeah,
don't
I'm
like
gonna put
my
makeup on
vacation
and
look?
I like your vacation look.
Vacation look.
All right. Yes, so we'll correct the TA.
Then I'm only finding one of my other pages. Oh, no. Oh, section 3, J2. There are 2 3Js.
Okay.
I think one of them should be 3K.
Okay. We'll fix that kind of thing.
Yeah, I figured, and I was like, I'm not going to bring that up when there's a bunch of other people that have questions, but since it's mostly us.
If you want to send your list to us, that'd be great.
It's
Okay.
the Nick show today, the Nick and Terry show.
Yeah, I was going to say, Nick, if you want to send us your list of corrections, we can look at that
Okay,
instead of going over them.
cool. On the pre-boarding thing, the pay for pre-boarding, it says that if you are not deadheading or scheduled for it, then you're not required to end on a line. You're not required to pre-board, which makes it sound like if you are deadheading on that flight, they can make you pre-board. Is that correct?
That's correct, and don't think we didn't try.
Great. I just want to make sure that
Yeah, no, that's correct.
I was reading that in a correct way. And then for airport reserve, there's in section 3C2C2, it says the airport reserve on standby is going to be calculated or counts for trip time, but that's which is that just saying like it adds to that trip time while you're on?
So it does two
reserve in
things.
case
One,
you get sent out.
So it does two things. One, it counts as part of your duty period. So,
Right.
you know, if you've already been sitting airport for 4 hours, they can't give you a 12-hour flight or a 12-hour duty day. But it also, what they're saying is it counts then as part of your rig.
Okay.
So if you had a time away from base driven trip, it could become a block trip because you just maybe sat 3 hours a block on airport, or vice versa. If you have it could make your trip time longer and then make it another extra pay on. It goes into part of the determination of the credit driver.
Right, and then if you don't get sent, you get that 5 credits that it says elsewhere.
If you sit the whole 5 hours.
Right. Or if you get sent on a trip and whatever, that calculates towards your trip time, whichever is greater. Correct?
Right.
Cool.
Right.
So if you're sitting on airport reserve and then get called out, would you get say you're sitting for 3 hours, would you get the 3 hours you're sitting and then whatever block of when they fly you? Or if they fly you, does that negate the time that you were sitting?
you look at it together and however it pays the most. Hold on, let me pull that up because it's a little bit trickier to answer because in Alaska, where we got this language from, they don't have rigs really. So let me find it. Make sure we're talking about the same thing.
What do you mean by rig? I'm not familiar with that term.
The rigs are the it's
Four
something-
choices of how we pay. It's
Yeah, you can
I'm
get
away
paid-
from base, duty, block, and average.
Okay.
yep.
I'm familiar with the system, just didn't know that that's what we call rig.
That's what we call a rig. While Kimberly's looking that up, I'm going to let you guys know that on the website, we started a section for the question of the day, and the first 2 questions of the day are on there. Kimberly did a scrolling doc, and I've separated it so that each day will have it separate. Sorry, Kimberly, I made an executive decision.
I don't care.
Yeah, you can keep forwarding it the same way, but I've put each day on there. So you guys will see the current one, and then you can go backwards in the archives and see the ones that are in there. So that's now on the website, and everyone can reference that. I'm sure someone will move it over into QX AFA, but it is on our HZN AFA page as well. So those are both on there.
All right.
The only thing.
So Nick, the language says, this is good actually, a reserve will be credited for airport standby pay plus the credit value of the flight flown toward guarantee.
So you get paid for the hours you sat
And
and
then
for any time you flew.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, that was a wig. I get it.
Woo!
Okay.
That's great. I love it. That's great.
Well, now that you're all going to be on reserve, I hope you love it, except for Terry.
Yeah.
Crazy. Oh, there's some people in the waiting room. Hold on, I'll let them in.
Oh, Amy needs to come in.
Amy and Brandy likes.
Hi, Brandy. Welcome. You're probably muted, but welcome to the room. It's good to have you. And
Looks
Amy,
like she's still connecting to audio.
Yeah,
There.
okay, she's on. She's connected now.
Amy, are you connected? Do we have any questions that have come in yet?
Hey, there were some questions on Facebook, and it's kind of a broad, and it's more about Alaska. But the questions were, what information has Alaska given, and maybe it's more of a Kim question here,
That's fine.
on their negotiations? I mean, have they stopped their negotiations as a whole at this point, or are they continuing on? Where is
They're not-
Alaska in the negotiation
Jamie-
process?
Okay, yeah, they're not even in, or Amy, they're not even in negotiations. They're just starting to select a committee.
Perfect. And
Their
it seems
negotiations,
like
their
everybody
contract,
thinks they are.
it's not amendable till the end of the year, I think. So they got a ways to go before they start.
For some reason, our flight attendants think they are.
Well, I'm sure they do, but I mean, it's a verifiable fact that they are not. So
Perfect.
they have not even done their survey. They haven't done anything. So they're just warming up.
So Jamie, are you going to post things back on Facebook and start those debates going back and forth, or how are you going to handle that?
It looks like Lexi has handled quite a bit of it, but if somebody says that, I'm just going to say they're not in negotiations. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to be clear, we're not, people can say what they want on Facebook, and I'm not interested in arguing with people, but if there's factual errors in what they're stating, I think that's fair to correct those.
yeah.
I don't think Lexi corrected it. I think she just said, we have a good relationship with them, but I don't know that she actually corrected that they are not in negotiations. Can you check on that, Jamie, and make sure that piece gets out there?
Sure. I can do
That
that.
would be great.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I got out of it that they thought they were in it right away versus coming up on it, but I'm sure I can't read every post. So. All right.
Was there another question that was on Facebook that you wanted to bring up?
The only other thing that I saw was the early out for a lot of the company. People want to know why it's not in the TA. I think Kirk got on there and explained it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, the basic reason, because they had originally been talking about putting it in as part of the TA, and I will say that in the last couple of 2 or 3 contracts, it's been in there as part of the TA. we never negotiated it. It was just kind of thrown in there, sort of like an extra ratification bonus type of thing. But we got a lot of criticism, and I think rightly so, that people were going to vote on the TA that they never intended to work under because they wanted to vote yes to get the early out, right? So the company, then it happened that they wanted to not put out any more cash at this time than they had to. So it kind of got off the table at that point. I believe they're intending to put, as is Alaska, a company-wide one out, which we have been told on both sides, both carriers, that it will be less generous than ones in the past, but that there should be one coming at some point. So does that answer your question? Well, it wasn't really your question, but that's the facts. Anything
And
else?
I think it did get out there that it was going to be company-wide. I think the facts on that one are on Facebook, the last I saw. And if someone has a question, they can just scroll back to see that one.
Yeah, I think Kirk handled that one well.
And I see Jenny Warner's in. Jenny, do you have any questions for us on anything? Brandy, do you have any questions since you're sitting in with us? There's a raise hand feature. I'm not sure. Nick knows where it is. It's over on the participant area.
Yeah, you need to click on the participants on the bottom of the screen, and that will pop up the on your right side will pop up all the participants and who's muted and who's not. And at the bottom there is a raise hand option.
Perfect. So Brandy, I saw that you took your microphone, so you're off mute. Did you have a question for us?
Yeah, I wanted to touch base on the commuter policy.
Okay.
Or I guess not the commuter policy, but the those flight attendants that will be able to use the commuter code for commuting. It's 15% of the entire seniority list.
Right, but if you're not a registered, that's the number of people. So, but if they're not registered commuters, they're not eligible.
Okay. And then
so it's really the number equal to 15%, which is about 105 right now. You know, so the top 105 registered commuters will have it.
Okay, so it's not necessarily just the top 15% and then whatever commuters in that top 15% get it.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, all right, I'm good then.
And that's system-wide, not just by base.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it is a rolling list. So as people come off of the list, they will add the next person on the waiting list into it. So it is a rolling list, which is nice as well.
Can you speak to, because some people are asking, why do we not have the same commuter language as Alaska or the pilots? What is different in our policy as opposed to the Alaska or the pilots?
Our management team?
Well, I mean,
I'm just going to be honest. Obviously, I mean, as you all know, we went in and said, that's exactly what we want. We want the same commuter policy that the other 3 out of the 4 work groups have. There's no reason we should be any different than the other 3 out of the 4 work groups. So we want the same thing. And what they said to us, and it remained the same all the way through, they never wavered. We will not get what the pilots have at Horizon. Equally, we will not get what Alaska pilots or flight attendants have. But, you know, our biggest fight is even at our own company, our pilots have it. We fly with our pilots. We're all crew. We should not be any different than our crew in the flight deck. And adamantly, they said it was a horrid decision that they made when they did it with the pilots. The pilots got a 10-year contract. I can't remember how long their contract was, Kimberly.
At least, I don't know. It was very long, 9 years, I think.
Yeah, and so that was part of that length in terms that they got that commuter code. And I don't think we would be willing to do a 10-year contract just to get a commuter policy.
He said 8 years. Pilot says 8 years.
So when they came back to us and said, no, absolutely not, they also said no because the other work groups at Horizon would not have a commuter policy, and they didn't want an inequity between maintenance and planners and schedulers and all these work groups where we had something that the entire group didn't have. So we got creative on them and said, okay, fine, give them all a pass and let everybody have this. And that was a very complicated system that we don't have to go into, but we did make a pass at trying to balance that argument that they came with. And that didn't work. So what we ended up with was forcing them into at least something, which is what we have currently. And the thought process, just as a whole in negotiations, is you start somewhere and then you continue to build on that as the contract terms become amenable and you work on the future contracts. So our hope is that eventually, we will be able to get the same code at some point in time, but currently it's an addition. It is more than what we had before. So it's not perfect, and they were unwavering. There was no movement whatsoever, except for things to go worse that they were bringing to us. So this is what we were able to get.
So an Alaska flight attendant with their commuter code, they are only allowed to use that code on an Alaska operated metal, right?
Correct.
And then a Horizon flight attendant, they can only use their commuter code on a Horizon metal, right?
Right.
So there's really no difference in that.
That's correct. So they still get it on their metal. We get it on our metal. And I don't know how they handle SkyWest flights. I honestly do not know how an Alaska commuter is handled on a SkyWest flight. That's where there's one bit of confusion.
I don't.
I know. That's the one that I don't know currently.
I know they can designate. I mean, if there were a city that only SkyWest served for Air Group, they could designate that as their commuter city, but it doesn't say anything about what the boarding priority is out of that city, like on that metal. So I can find out if you want to know, but I don't know.
No, it came up with the Palm Springs issue. So I am going to find out outside of this what the SkyWest issue was and how that was resolved. But it's an added benefit more than what we had currently. And I will find out about the SkyWest piece of it, but I don't think that's part of the question. That's something for me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Terry.
I do know that Alaska can use the commuter policy on SkyWest because I got bumped off a Palm Springs flight by an Alaska commuter out of San Francisco.
That's why I wanted to find out.
Using that code.
Yep, I knew there was someone that was trying to come from Palm Springs that it happened to. I didn't know who it was. So that's why I wanted to go back and find out. So what happened was their commuter code bumped you off of the SkyWest flight.
Correct.
Coming to Portland or Seattle, whichever one it was.
Well, it can also, it may also be a gate agent making a mistake too. We don't know, but.
Well, I can see in the fly.
Yep.
What code they're using.
Okay.
Yep. So we will find out about that to answer your question on getting bumped out of Palm Springs. I will say currently, this is not about the TA, but currently we have a letter of agreement that we're going to put out that does allow us to now commute on other airlines and protects us for that second flight that we need to have because some of our cities only have one flight currently. So that is coming out today, and you will see that you now will have protection for commuting to use other airlines as one of your two flights or two flights, both of your two flights if you need them. So it's a little bit of an improvement while we have such reduced flying right now. But I will get the answer to that code on SkyWest, Terry, because that's what I was trying to solve for was that situation that I had heard of.
I'm going to text Jeff now and see if we can get the answer.
Okay. Yeah.
I just have one more thing about the pilots. What is the code the pilots use on us?
I think it's the same W5, isn't it?
I think it is.
So if we get this and a pilot is a W5 and a flight attendant is W5, then does it go by date of hire?
Yes.
So what does the pilots in their commuting policy have that we're not getting in this one?
The unlimited number.
Yeah, they can all of their pilots could register as commuters if they wanted to.
And that's the only difference?
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
I don't I don't want to say that for a fact because I don't know every detail of their policy, but to my understanding, yes.
Okay.
I have theirs and I've read it. I mean, obviously it's longer than one sentence, but for our purposes, what they have that we do not is that it is unlimited. They can have as many commuters listed as they need to have. So,
Okay.
and they still can't sit in our jump seat over us. So that still remains. Yeah, the jump seat goes to us, whether they're a commuter or not, the jump seat goes to us. If there's no one on our end going into that jump seat, then yes, they could, but they can't trump us on the jump seat. And that's because they have their jump in the front.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, Nick.
Okay, Jeff says yes, they can use their commuter boarding priority on SkyWest Alaska flights.
Okay, so that is why.
I'm surprised by that, but
And did I see something on Facebook asking if we could, or is there limitations on deadheads in the jump seat on time restrictions of like over flights over a certain amount of time? Because I remember hearing at least a while back that we're not supposed to be deadheaded in the jump seat at all. But it sounds like that would be changing with this new contract.
we didn't change anything about that. I don't know what they're talking about.
We can deadhead in the jump seat. Alaska can't deadhead in the jump seat. So if an Alaska flight attendant is deadheading on us, they have to get a seat. If we're deadheading on Alaska, they will generally give us a seat because that's the policy as they know it for deadheading crew members. But we do not in the contract have a protection that we have to have a seat for our deadheads.
Ah, okay.
I think it's also in pilot language or QX pilot language. There's something about over an hour that they don't have to sit in the jump seat on a deadhead or something like that. I've never seen it in writing, but I've heard about it numerous times.
But not for us.
Not for us.
Gotcha. I have more questions if no one else does, just to keep rolling, but I'm also happy to share space.
Well, we have
Let
a
me
couple people who just joined us,
Huh?
Jane, and then someone named iPad 3.
I like the iPad 3s and phone numbers. And Jenny Warner's in here. I don't know, Jenny, if you have any questions specifically for us on something. So Jane, iPad 3, or Jenny?
Or Lexi joined.
Oh, there's Lexi. Okay, well, go ahead, Nick. It looks
Cool.
like there are no other questions at the moment.
Section 4B, talking about the van times, saying that to the hotels has been cut down to 25 minutes instead of 30 minutes. The way I also read that is that if it says like if it's not going to be there within 25 minutes, we can use our own and get reimbursed for like calling a Lyft or whatever else. And is that we have to wait till 25 minutes is up and then call, or it's not looking like they're going to be here? Like, what are the
You know what? I'm gonna
If
do
the
defer to
specifics are
the
there.
flight attendants because that's not new language. The only new part is to change that language has always been there with the 30 minutes, and I don't know what your practice has been, but maybe one of the flight attendants knows that.
Well, I think that what I would say is generally we've waited that amount of time and then reached out. But if you were to call the hotel and they said they won't be there for 35 minutes, then I would think that you could document that and go ahead and use what avenues are available to us now, the Uber code or calling a cab and getting reimbursed for it.
Cool.
So it's not in the language, but that would be the practice that I would take with that.
Okay, because I feel like more often than not, it's like, oh, it'll be there in 15, and
Right.
40 minutes.
Unfortunately, if they keep saying that, you kind of have to wait the 25 minutes now,
Right.
if it's ratified. And then literally I would be calling someone so that I was requesting it at the 25th minute. So, I'm not waiting any longer. But I don't think that there would, I can't say there would never be discipline around that or they wouldn't pay it. But I think generally speaking, that's one that they're going to support, that you needed to have transportation. And
All right,
as
well,
long
we
as you have a
may
reason.
have an answer because Jane's got her hand up here.
Oh, that's right. Jane's good at this.
He knows the answer to these questions. Yes.
Okay, I can give you an example of what that means. So 25 minutes actually means that from the time you are picked up at the curb, the hotel is no more than 25 minutes from the airport. However, to answer your question, I can give you a pretty easy example. Vancouver, which we're not overnighting there anymore, but that will probably return. Their van is every 20 minutes. And so if you get out there at, say, 5 minutes after 12, you would expect the van to be there at 20 after. But if it doesn't show, then you can call an Uber. You do not have to wait another 20 minutes.
Cool. If you know it runs on a normal schedule, well, and the 20 minutes is always for me, like especially in Vancouver, like, okay, is it arriving at that 20 minutes or is it leaving the hotel at that 20 minutes?
Well, it's
Because when they say it's every 20 minutes, like, is that?
Well,
it's 5 minutes from the hotel, so it could be 25 after, but if it's not there, you don't have to wait till the next one, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
You know, if it's reasonable, if it's between 20 after and 12:30 and there's no van, you can. Now, Vancouver's a little different because they don't have Uber. You have to take a cab.
Oh, okay.
But the cabs are always right there. It's like my position is everybody's, you know, the rest of the crew's like, well, let's just wait. Well, I'm talking 12:30 a.m. No,
Right.
I'm not waiting because sometimes they don't even have a driver. And then you call again and they go, it'll be 20 minutes to wait more. And then they don't show. So, you know, you got to be reasonable if it's, you know, you're in Redmond and there's nothing out there to take you to the
Right.
hotel. That's a little different because, you know, I mean,
so there's two pieces on this 25 minutes. One is how long you have to wait for it to get there, and then the other piece that's in the hotel side letter is how far away the hotel can be. So they both happen to be 25. But
Cool.
okay, we have a new person named Dottie here. Hello.
Oh, wonderful. Dottie got in. She was having some difficulty getting in, so that's great. And we have a couple of text message email questions. The first, well, it's kind of all of one. What about an early out with no money, but just flight benefits? What do you think the probability of them to continue to offer? Oh, that is a second question. So we'll deal with the first one. What about an early out with no money, but just flight benefits? And again, the early out is going to be entirely company decided because it's going to be a staffing reduction across the board for AAG as a whole. It's going to include admin employees, management. It's going to include everybody. So management, we wouldn't know those details, but admins and all work group. So when they come up with what the policy will be across the board, they will put out what the policy will be for an early out. But I don't know that we'll do benefit only. Kimberly, go ahead.
No, I don't have anything to add to that. I mean, in the past, if you haven't been eligible for retirement, there's been either a certain number of years of passes you qualify for or bridge to retirement passes. But I'm assuming that they would consider that. But obviously, if we can get you some, you know, if they'll give money, you'd rather have the money. But I don't know what they're going to do.
And then the second question was, what do you think the probability is for continuing CLOAs? And that's outside of the contract because company leave of absences are not in the contract. So I will just say that I believe they will continue to offer them. I know they offered more for May.
Well, I think that, I think they'll offer them through October or through September when the grants run out and they don't have money to pay anymore. And then they'll probably, depending on where demand is, keep offering them if they don't want to furlough, or then they would probably look into furloughing unless we can forestall that in Congress as well. But I think it's probably a safe bet for most of the summer, depending on how things pick up. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I can go month by month right now, but I would expect that they probably will. I know they offered more for May. My guess, Dee Dee and I had a conversation about the June pairing build, which will come up shortly. And she was talking about additional leaves for June as well. So I think, you know, the goal would be not to have so many people on reserve, but again, they're voluntary company leaves. If people choose to take them, they do. And I think they'll continue to offer as many leaves as possible going forward.
Yeah, they don't, I mean, I want to be clear. They don't want to furlough if they don't have to. Nobody likes to do that. They don't want to do that. And as you know, as long as people are willing to take leaves, that's That's a good way to do it.
So on that, my understanding with the way that the bill is set up is that we would get our minimums regardless if we're flying or not, with the bill saying no furloughs and maintaining pay, correct?
I don't know that it's going to
Fly
be
or not, yes, but not whether or not you take a leave.
Right, but if you take a leave, you are foregoing that
Correct.
guarantee because you're saying I'm not part of the company at all.
Right. I mean, it's our position that you would get the 69 hours times your pay rate through September,
Unless you
unless you pull yourself out of that,
Right.
like taking a leave. Right. So if you're willing to, end up on reserve, then you can certainly maintain your income through the summer.
And as far as now, any summer vacations are still being approved and like we've not lost any of that, correct?
No, they put the slots back in that they had taken out. So those slots are back in there. And the day at a time is functioning in the system. If there's enough reserve coverage, the day at a time should be granted.
And
As well as any previous
if you have big vacation,
approved.
they're not canceling that. They can only do that under certain circumstances, and they have not mentioned that.
Okay.
I do know that there were some people that had vacation already planned, and then they took the leaves and they took part-time lines, and Dee Dee has remained open to talking about whether or not you want that vacation pay or you want to drop that vacation. So if you have a planned vacation that you are going to take a leave and you don't want that paid out, then you can email her in advance and say, I'd rather keep that vacation time on the books. And I think she's been pretty open to going either direction.
Is there any talk that at the end of the year, if you're over your vacation, that they're going to extend the amounts? I didn't see that they changed.
No, because they put everything back on. So had they removed the slots and denied vacation, then we would have had some discussions about that. We have not had those discussions because they put everything back to where it was. Now, what we're doing on the vacation grievance and how we'll resolve that is a totally separate issue, and that's still being worked. So Kimberly and Kirk and Marcella are still working on that grievance, and what remedy there will be in that, we do not know.
Kirk, you have your hand up? Or not? Did for a second there?
Yeah, there we are. Yeah. Sorry. I was just going to comment on the vacation. So yes, we are, if this TA passes, we will be discussing vacations. And we'll make that part of the discussion of since there were so few slots offered for 2020, we may make that as part of the discussion of raising the cap of 17 hours over. Does that help?
Oh, I guess I could talk about that piece, the piece that they agreed to on the vacation, because it came out of the implementation letter. So at the end, we were going back and forth on several things, and we wanted it clarified somewhere that we would be having a vacation discussion before it is time to program vacation, which is usually in the August or September timeframe. So all of these grievances, all of these issues around vacation slots, around vacation day at a time, around not having enough slots, around slots getting pulled, everything as a whole will be discussed between the grievance chairs, myself, and management prior to 60 days, I believe we ended up. Was it within 60 days?
Well, by July 1st, we'll start talking.
Yeah. So within 60 days of the TA ratifying, if it does, then we will be having those discussions with management. And there has been an assurance by Joe Sprague himself that he will intervene if those discussions are getting stalled or in any way not moving forward in time for vacation being opened in October.
Did you have another question, Lisa, on your list?
Let's see.
I happen to have a question if nobody else does.
Yeah,
Go ahead while I'm looking.
If a reserve, or it's on page 68, it's in the reserve section. It says, if a reserve picks up an additional reserve days, any hours flown or credited will count toward the reserve credit list. So to put my question in an example, let's say that the flight attendant bid a reserve or has a reserve line and they had a whole bunch of days off in the beginning, could they pick up out of open time or flight attendants, fill their schedule really high, and then pretty much not get called out for the last part
Well, if you,
because they have too much hours?
I'm not understanding that, because if you have days off and you pick up trips, that doesn't count toward your credit sort. So that's just talking about order of assignment. So anything on your days off except for reserve days doesn't count toward that.
Oh, maybe I'm misinterpreting it.
And the only reason that language is even written that way, because we wanted, well, it's from Alaska, but it's because they wanted to have a separate assignment list for people on their days off, and the computer couldn't do it. So that's what we agreed to, and that's why we have that here. But it has nothing to do with your time flown other than as a reserve on a reserve day. Just like today, if you pick up a trip from open time, that doesn't go into your credit sort.
But if you pick up a reserve day somehow, anything flown on that would count.
Correct. And more to the point, well, it doesn't count toward guarantee. It just counts to who gets the trip, because they don't want to have two stacks of, does that make sense? Like, it's not going to count towards your guarantee. It's going to count toward whether or not you get called out for a given trip on a given day.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Nick? You look confused, or is that just your hat?
No, it's yeah, just my resting face. No, that makes sense to me. I don't know how you would pick up a reserve day as opposed to picking up trips, unless someone wants to trade it off.
Well, there were reserve days, like Medford
We
as
have
an
been in
example,
open
did
time.
have reserve days in open time.
Okay.
It was a while ago, but they definitely had reserve days in open time. And you had to actually, I mean, not to confuse everything, you had to pick up 2 of them. You couldn't even pick up just one of them.
But yes, it could also include if you picked it up from somebody else. If they split a block and gave you some, or if you picked them up.
Right.
Or if somebody traded the line holder and then you traded it back. I don't even know why you would be doing this, really, but good.
It looks like there's a lot more flexibility of the reserve, so it may happen a little more.
Well,
often
and I think
now.
too that, sometimes they want to pick up time and there's not any single day trips that are, or something, and they only have one day that they're legal to pick up or something like that is why you might do that.
So we
to pick
do
up
have,
a reserve as opposed to picking up an actual trip.
Right, because I mean, a reserve day is going to be worth the 4.17, whereas a trip, I guess, could only be worth 4. I mean, I don't know, but depending on your schedule and what you can do. If you only have one day that you can be legal for, there may not be any day trips in open time. So you might pick up a reserve day if the company put them there.
So on that, I did have some questions about reserve. Again, I can hold on to those if other people have more burning questions, but since
go ahead.
we're kind of on this topic, I know that the new minimum for reserve would be 75 credits for the month, minimum. And it looks like you'd get about 2 hours a day if not called.
No, you don't. Well, you don't really get called. You don't get anything if you're not called. It just, because it's a monthly guarantee, not a day guarantee, unless you're picking up on a day off. I mean, you would get 3 credits. You get 3 credits if you get called to the airport and you don't fly, and the trip is canceled or whatever reason you don't fly it. But
Right.
just like today, there's no base pay for being on reserve. Like, doesn't.
And that 3 credit, is that in addition to anything, or like if they call you out and fly you, or say, hey, you're already at the airport, we're gonna now put you on something else, or send you back on reserve, do those stack at all, or is it just, again, kind of greater of whatever you earned that day?
You would definitely go back on reserve. I'm trying to think what would happen if you were reassigned once you were there. I think that would be just what would happen, because basically it's to cover you when you go to the trouble of going to the airport and get sent home.
Right.
Yeah. So I think if you get reassigned, that you would just, I don't know.
And at that point, you would get the 4-hour minimum for that day because you flew.
But it's not per day though. It's per month, right? It's 75 per month. The 4.17 is what that would break down to on average. But if you flew 3 hours that day, you don't get 4 towards your guarantee, 4.17 towards guarantee. You get 3 towards guarantee.
But isn't there a minimum of like any trip is worth
Well,
4?
okay, you're right. You're right. You'd get 4 if you flew. That's true. Okay.
Right. So I mean, let's assume that the flight attendant on reserve is going over 75 credits.
Okay.
So we're not worrying about minimums, and we're just calculating each day for what you get. If you go in, if you don't get called at all, it's a 4.175. Well, no, that's just assuming it's 4.175 because that's kind of what the minimum is, right?
It doesn't have a day value. You get your min guarantee. If you didn't get called at all and you got to the end of the bid, you'd have your min guarantee. So it wasn't a day average. There was no days in there.
But if you
got
got
to the
called,
end of
but
the
if on
bid-
your first 10 days of work, you somehow managed to get 76 hours in, right?
Right.
Which would be crazy, but nice. And then you sit the next day and you don't fly, there's no compensation for that. It's already included in that.
Okay. Unless I got called in and then canceled, I'd get those 3 hours.
If you go to the airport, right? And that would then go above guarantee because you've broken guarantee already.
Right. Of course. As well as every time that I do get called in, I get that extra, what is it, like 250 or something?
For every block hour you fly.
For every block hour you fly, getting called in. It looks like they have now combined the carryover time, because right now it's reserve stops at after midnight, their carryover clicks to the next day, but for line holders it's the 2 a.m. And on, see if I can find the actual section 3E 1 through or 3. I might have that, but somewhere in 3E, carryover is considered not into the day off if you're released before or at 0200, and it sounds like that is for all flight attendants now, not just line holders, which the current contract says line holders. Does that track?
I'm sorry. I'm out of paper, and I went to the store this morning and they wouldn't let me in because I'm not 60. No, I mean, and so I couldn't get paper to print this. I had to get home before my kid got up. It was a very confusing morning. So I'm scrolling through my computer on a PDF, which is always a nightmare.
Sure.
So hold on.
The one time we want to look older.
Yeah, right?
Open hours.
Like, give me a pandemic in 10 years, we can talk. Not really. Okay, 3E.
3E1, maybe something 3. Maybe 1, 2. It says carryover is not considered a day off.
It says carryover work from a prior day that was originally scheduled to end prior to midnight will not be considered work on a day off, provided the flight attendant's actual. Yeah, that is not new language because it's not underlined. That's always been that way. And reserves end at midnight. That's just the way it is. They end on their reserve day.
Okay, I thought I remember in the current contract that it said for line holders.
And no, there's no, it doesn't. This is what it says.
Okay. So for reserves, it would still be, if they get carried over past midnight, they would get the full 4 hours, or where they would get just the 2 hour of being deadheaded home or whatever else.
Okay, let me find Article 7 on my PDF. Hold on. On Lisa's quality computer, no less. If a reserve flies into her day off, she gets sorry, this is really clunky and slow, but talk amongst yourselves. Because I know there's a change in this, but I don't want to say what it is until I'm positive.
Great.
You guys get to watch my husband wash the windows behind me.
Great, you say that when I can't look at the video. That's not fair.
That's pretty funny.
And as far as the current contract goes, when
Okay,
those,
here's what it says. If your duty period carries into a day off as a result of operations by more than 15 minutes, you get paid 4 hours above guarantee, provided you're already at minimum days.
cool, that's the current.
Okay.
So it's not at 12 o'clock, it's by 12:15.
Correct.
Then you get that 4-hour minimum. Now say say if instead of getting back to base at 12:30, if you're a reserve into your day off, right? Then you would get that 4-hour minimum for that day off. Or you can do the give me one later.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Well, not anymore now, or with the new contract, not anymore.
With the TA.
With a TA, that would you wouldn't have the option to get that day off later.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. I knew there was a change in there. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. Making note of that. But then there's the if you're scheduled that same section 3E14, like if you're scheduled into the day off, not carryover, but scheduled into the day off, you get a minimum of 2 hours, and that's like a hey, we need to deadhead you home in the morning because we had you stuck in Boise because of weather or whatnot. That's you're getting at least 2 hours, even if the flight was 30 minutes, right? So in reserve, would
Kimberly.
you get the 4-hour and the 2-hour, or just whatever is greater?
I don't know. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I'm like, I mean, I could certainly tell you what I would actually talked about that specific situation at the table.
Okay.
What?
I mean, I'm just looking for loopholes and all the nitty gritty of how this would work.
Well, I would say that you would get the greater of 4 or whatever the duty rig for that day would be, but which is unlikely to be more than 4. If
Right.
you're heading home, so probably
But
just.
not that they would stack of, hey, you carried me over.
Oh,
Well, I guess it wouldn't be a carryover; it would just be a schedule. Yeah. Well,
you'd have lost your day off, so yeah.
I think that's all the questions I have on that, but I will
Keep reading, Nick. Keep reading.
absolutely.
He needs to go fly and stop reading that TA so closely.
I've got one day that might become an AV day. Otherwise, I'm not flying for another month.
And
You
getting
get it
paid.
every day.
Okay.
We did get a question on, did we try for a strike clause to be able to strike? Did we try to change the language about striking?
Well, no, because it's against the law to strike. So there's 2 kinds of strikes in the normal world that is not aviation or railroad, which is a strike when your contract expires and you don't have a new one, or you can strike if the company does certain what we call unfair labor practices. So neither of those provisions applies in airlines because we're under the Railway Labor Act. Under the Railway Labor Act, there is no such thing as an unfair labor practice, so you can't do any strikes during the term of the contract. And then because our contract technically doesn't expire, it becomes amendable. That means it stays in effect until the next step, which I'll get to. Whereas if I worked for, Kellogg's making cereal, and my contract expired at midnight, if we didn't have a new contract, I could go on strike, or the company could say, this is the rules you're working under right now. Whereas in the airline industry, they can't do that because they don't want to interrupt the interstate commerce. So we have to go to mediation, and then we have to convince the National Mediation Board to release us into what's called a 30-day cooling off period. And then 30 days after that, then we can go on strike. So there's nothing we could put in the contract that would change that because that's federal law. So no, we did not open on being allowed to strike during our contract.
And it's federal law that prohibits us from even being able to put it in there in the Railway Act. So we can't
But
even.
we could put it in there, it just wouldn't be enforceable.
Okay.
they would take us to court even though they'd agreed to it. So no.
All right, let's see if anyone has their hand up and has any questions.
Oh, Tanya wants to come in. Hello, Tanya.
Nothing via text or email yet.
I feel like we're doing a telethon.
Waiting for the phone to ring.
Yeah. Waiting for someone to give me a donation, I guess. I don't know. All right. Anyone else? I don't know how long we didn't really put an end time on this. Oh, Nick, go ahead.
I found the section that was giving me some issues, and it's because I didn't write down the other half of airport reserve. That's where I was getting the 2 hours a day. For it says in under credit values and pay, so it's a 3C2C3. A reserve line holder shall receive a minimum of 2.0 hours credit for each day of airport reserve scheduled pursuant to Article 7. So since airport reserves get 5 credits per day, this is saying you weren't scheduled for airport reserve, you were sitting at home and we called you in to airport reserve. Would that flight attendant not automatically become an airport reserve and get that,
Okay.
that
So
1 credit each, or?
The airport reserve isn't really 5 credits. It's 1 credit per hour.
Okay.
So if you sit the full 5 hours, what they're saying is even if you sit for half an hour, you'll get at least 2 hours.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
And
or what you flew or whatever.
To compensate you for the heartache of going to the airport, I guess.
So that 2 hours is in addition to whatever you flew?
It
Or
should
no?
be because it says that the airport standby time is above guarantee or is above your, in addition to the flights you fly. So it should be.
And then we got a text question, or sorry, email.
We got a couple of
question.
hands up. We have Amy and Jamie have their hands up.
Oh, Amy said ignore her hand, so we'll
Okay.
lower hers. And then
Amy?
Amy,
I have a 2-part question. Sorry. So I noticed that in a couple different areas it says crew scheduling by cell phones or other means, and in another part later it says that cell phones are not required. Where is the stance on the actual cell phone? Because I know previously we weren't required to have a cell phone.
You're not required to have a cell phone.
Still, perfect. And the second part is there
And you
anything?
will never be required to have a cell phone unless they pay for it and provide it.
Perfect. I like that answer. Second one is the eCrew check-in. Is there anything in paper that says that they are not going to take that away from us? Like IMD check-in for your trips?
no,
No?
that was just a new enhancement that they added, so that we were able to check in remotely. But it's
Okay.
not contractual. It was just an enhancement to the technology that we have using that IMD.
But
Perfect.
no, there's nothing that says they won't take it away, but I don't really know why they would unless it gets over abused.
Yeah, if it was abused, they would. That would be the reason that they would. Amy got a submitted question, which was, how long is the new contract for? So if it's ratified, it will be a 4-year contract.
So
And then Nick, go ahead.
On the airport reserve, I remember seeing wording of at check-in, like your time away from base and all that stuff. Is there going to be a difference on airport reserve of actually checking in on the computers with this TA? Or is it the same, like you checked in when your duty starts?
yeah, so the reason it says check-in is because Alaska literally scans in, or did at the time their contract was written. So when I brought it in, I said scan in, and everyone's like, no, we don't scan in for airport reserve. And so we put check-in so there is a time, but unless they change procedures, which they could do, you won't have to go check in. It will just be when you get there, just like today.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
No more emails. Jamie, is there anything else from Facebook that you saw? Oh, Jane's got her hand up.
Jane's got her hand up, yeah.
No.
Oh, okay.
Jane, did you have a question? Oh, Jane left. Nope, Jane's still there, but no question.
Put her hand down.
Sorry, I
Anyone
unmuted.
else have a question?
Wait, no, Jane's talking, or she was.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was just going to help break the silence for a moment because it sounds it may have been answered before I came on, and this is very simple, but yesterday I asked a question about putting your trips in pink and then scheduling, being able to assign those to reserves. Is all that going to happen May 1st? Or is there technology involved with that?
So what she said, what Dee Dee said was that it won't be programmed May 1st. Obviously, it'll be programmed January at the earliest. But she said that she has the ability, because scheduling does not have the ability, but in-flight management has the ability to do it. And so if she sees that there's an excess and not, you know, they want the reserves to fly, she can make that happen. But so it could arguably start May 1st, but it's not something crew scheduling itself can control until it's automated.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
That's a good question. Thank you.
No hands? Oh, Terry.
Hi. Do you guys realize we have like three former and current MEC presidents on this call?
Yeah.
Were you the first one?
No, not the first.
Okay.
Close, but not the first. Could you talk about the perfect attendance that Alaska has? Is it in their contract or is that something separate?
The perfect attendance or the attendance policy?
Well, like
They
when
don't
they
have any
fly June,
perfect-
July, August without calling in sick, they get that bonus money.
It's not.
I don't know if
It's not calling in sick. It's flying above their awarded line. They get more money.
is that in the contract or is that something?
Yeah, it's
separate?
in their contract.
So was
We
anything?
we did ask for it. We did open on it.
Oh,
And the word we got, and this is consistent with what I've heard at Alaska, is that they regret ever doing it and it's costing them too much money.
well, that explains why we didn't get it in.
Well, we told them that. What's hilarious to me, well, you know Ben Minicucci, right? So it was his idea. He thought he had this brilliant plan, and not so much. So anyway.
Well, I just, it kind of burns my hide that I have to work an entire year to get $100 and they fly 3 months and not call in sick and they get a $500 bonus.
It's not even about not calling in sick. It's about flying
Well,
more, like picking up additional flying over their line
Yeah.
value. No,
So
Terry,
the way they treat us so different. So
I know.
just curious if it was ever brought up.
A
Oh,
lot of
absolutely.
a lot of
Absolutely.
those things that we brought up, Terry, as you know, you bring them up and you bring them up, and it comes back to the regionals don't do those types of programs. So it's not a this versus Alaska. Alaska gets it. Why can't we have it? It's you're the regional, they're the main line, and regionals do not have it. So they really shut down even that conversation of, but Alaska has it, and they drive it to other regionals do not offer these programs, and we can't add these types of programs in because it makes the regional flying non-competitive. If that helps any. It doesn't soften the blow any,
No.
but
No, it's offensive. Absolutely.
but it's a bigger fight at the regional level that we need to be talking with international about at some point, and we do. We continually bring up the regional fight to get things more equitable.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
Well, they just they talk about people calling in abusing their sick time, but yet here's a perfect solution, but then they don't want to do it.
yeah, there were lots of those types of issues that we brought in that Alaska does have, because we're able to see their contract. So it makes it easy to say, oh, well, here are these great programs that would help alleviate the sick time potentially, or abuse of sick time potentially. And they're not willing to look at any of them.
No.
Yeah,
There's
their position is, why should we pay you for doing pay you extra for basically doing your job?
But you're right, it would solve their issue, and it would incentivize us And for people that don't abuse sick time, it would be a great program. And continually, it comes down to the other regionals don't do it, so we don't get it. The Alaska part doesn't even come into play. We don't even get that far.
All right, Kirk, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Sorry for the delay. So there's been a lot of comments on Facebook that, it's like buying a car. You never take the first offer, and we should, turn this down. This is not a loaded question, but more of if you can speak to that, if you're comfortable speaking to that about the time frame of when the process of getting to a new TA and how that process works.
Okay, yeah, no, my laugh wasn't that that's a ridiculous statement. It's that we hear that every TA at every career. And I don't think it's completely comparable. I mean, it's up to you whether you want to vote something down and then not make some more money in the interim while you wait for a new one, which is not the case with a car, right? Like, you may get the price down, but you have not gone a year without a car while you negotiate the car, right? So if this is voted down, and I absolutely want to stress that is 100% the choice of the flight attendants, that the next step would be that we would have to, reconstitute, see if our committee if the MAC wants to keep the same negotiating committee or interview for new people. Then we have to survey the flight attendants. We have to potentially consider whether we want to apply for mediation to move us to the next step of the process, then sit down and meet with the company. So it would be highly unlikely to go back to the table prior to early fall. And then, there's nothing that says that it would be improvements, because we would then be bargaining in a very different revenue environment than we were at the time that we first reached this TA. So, nobody really we don't have a crystal ball. I can tell you that when we had Dan Akins, our financial advisor, on this on Wednesday, he doesn't see the airline industry getting back to the same demand level for at least about 4 years. I mean, things will be obviously picking up in the interim, but not back to where we are today for about 4 years. So, is that what you wanted, Kirk?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of need to answer the question, but I think it needed to be addressed, because I saw numerous comments on that the last 24 hours, encouraging people like, why would you accept this offer? Because, a year from now we'll have a new offer that's better than this if we say no.
Well, it might be better, but unless you got, depending on what the inflation rate and the cost of living is, unless you've got that much more, then you've lost the 4.75% that you would have gotten this year, right? Even though it may not start till September. If we start negotiations in the fall, it could easily be a year before we get another TA. So that would be, 18 months from now.
Yeah, I'm very aware of that.
And that's optimistic. I mean, we've had one TA voted down. And that was kind of at a time where the industry, everybody was voting everything down, but that seems to have somewhat slowed down. People aren't voting things down as much as they used to. I don't know. It just seems cyclical. So, I don't know.
Okay, we have a text message question that came in. This one is, let's see if I can read it here. Nope, we got that one. The next one. It's tiny, so I'm trying to read. Oh, come. As I stare into my computer here, let me see if I can open this up bigger. On my phone. Ooh. All right. Yes, I can get it bigger on my phone. If a deadhead is dropped, the TA allows us to keep the deadhead pay. Will the previous trip rig convert to the new rig without the deadhead, or will the original trip rig be retained?
There's no loss of pay, so it should be the same as it would be if you flew it.
Okay.
Does that answer
that? They're in email format. So the next one.
Can you hold on?
Yeah.
Sorry. Do you need something, honey?
No, we just had Jay's birthday party.
You had a cat? Okay.
It got rescheduled.
Okay. Okay. Bye. Love you.
Really boring.
Okay.
Hi, Gypsy. All right, the next one. Will all of the changes to the reserve system be implemented in April, or will some of the changes like hours/pay be implemented right away?
No, they all go into effect together.
And we did that too, correct, Kimberly? That was something that we said we wanted all of the reserve section to go in at the same time. No portion could
Well,
be.
I mean, we obviously would have preferred to have that increase in the guarantee and the extra day off at the same time. So it was a company that was saying no, but we didn't want them to program any of the negative stuff before the good stuff. So it kind of came out that it was all going to come in at the same time.
Good. That was Kirk. You have your hand up. Did you have a question, or did we just not?
Excuse me, that was from earlier.
Okay.
I'll take it now.
Kirk, are there any questions that you know that you've been asked? Anything that has come to you in a text message that you want to bring up here so that we can just cover off on it for those who are listening?
Let me ponder that for a minute.
Okay, we'll take Nick's question and then we'll see if you find some on your phone that have come into you or email.
My question is about the flying into your vacation. And they said that you get, I remember, I think it was the Wednesday talk, that you get paid for that. Is that for every day of the vacation or just the day that you fly in?
I'm sorry. My daughter was.
It's just the day that they flew you into your vacation.
Okay.
The
That makes
reason it
sense.
says days is because you could technically get stranded somewhere like into the second or third day of your vacation.
So for each day that you're flying into that, you're getting
Correct.
paid for that. Okay.
Right.
Yep.
That's it.
All right.
I don't know if Joelle's still driving, but Joelle, I'll ask you the same thing. If you have the opportunity to see if anyone has directly text messaged you any questions or emailed you any, if you get to a stopping point, it might be great to go over some of those that you've received as well. Jamie, I think you've been bringing up the ones from Facebook, but maybe you could do the same thing, check and see if there's been anything in your text messaging or emails that you've gotten that we could bring up.
Hey,
That
Lisa,
was the
can you hear
cell
me?
phone one.
Okay, perfect. Joelle,
Can
what
you-
was that?
Can,
Yeah,
can
we
you hear me?
Yes.
Hopefully it's not too loud. I'm going relatively slow.
No, it's fine.
I've been dealing, not dealing with, but just assisting with questions regarding the payroll and understanding how the pay scale would be changing. So nothing else out of the, in any of the other detailed items just at this time.
How the pay scale would be changing other than
Just trying to understand. They're just trying to understand how it's going to change from their current rate, what they're expecting, and then how it would switch over each year
Okay.
of the contract.
Okay, well, we have a chart that we did from the PowerPoint. We have a spread that we can post that if that would help people.
I think it would be, I ended up taking screenshots of the slideshow when you guys did it on Wednesday and sent it over
Okay.
directly to them. But I think it would be helpful to post it somewhere.
That's actually a good idea.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
the whole PowerPoint is posted, right? Because it's posted as part of the video call, right? So
Yes.
Maybe I'll just make that cheat
Yes.
sheet have 3 references right now, since we know of 3, when Dan starts, when Joe starts, and where that slide is. So I'll just do a PowerPoint presentation little cheat sheet on there as well, and I'll include that on there.
well, we can post the PowerPoint too, but I know they had a couple of mistakes in it, typos last time, so I have fixed it for tomorrow mostly, but I want to make sure they're all fixed before we post it,
Okay.
or post it after the meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good feedback, Joelle. Thanks.
But everybody's
welcome.
getting a raise. There's that. So I know someone on Facebook wrote something like she's going to make less under this contract, and I couldn't even. I mean, I think she's obviously thinking something that I'm not thinking because
She's one of the flight attendants we've been trying to assist, and there is something missing, but I think she's finally there. She finally understands.
Okay. Yeah, like I said before, they can draw their own conclusions as long as everybody has the facts. So You have to decide individually whether it works for you, but we just want to make sure that whatever decision you make is based on facts. So, all right, anything else?
There's one that came in from from email again. They see that at their option, flight attendants will be reimbursed up to $50 from their uniform bank for the cost of uniform compliant shoes. The company may require the flight attendant to provide receipts. Is this a $50 per year, or could I buy 2 or more pair of uniform shoes and be reimbursed at $50 per pair per year? So each year, may you submit a $50 reimbursement for shoes?
Yes.
All right. And no hands. Kirk, let's go back to you and see if you found anything in your text messaging or email that we could ask.
I looked through it, actually. I've been looking ever since you asked the question, and everything has been answered actually on today's call and in the last couple of days. Everything that was out there that's come in since yesterday was answered on today's Zoom meeting here. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll raise my hand if something comes up, so if I can think of anything.
Terry, is there anything you can think of that we should talk about today? Because we are posting these, but is there anything you think we should talk about that you saw on Facebook? I know you were helping to kind of clarify a few things as well. I really don't spend a lot of time in there, but do you think there's anything that we should have on here that we should talk to?
It seems like the hot topics are the commuter policy and the sick time. Why you're putting these, the sick policy in the contract instead of trying to renegotiate back to 12 days or 13 days or whatever. So, they were talking about it, and I told, I said the reason why they're putting it in there so they can't continue to deteriorate it, go down to 8.
Right.
So
I noticed you posted that, and they still came back with a question, and I'm not on Facebook right now to pull it up. I know there was a comment back to yours that was still not factual information, so maybe I'll try and pull that up for one of our future ones. But your answer was correct. I mean, and Kirk talked to it yesterday, they can do anything they want to right now, and they've shown that they intend to do whatever they want to with it if we don't put it into the contract. So they want certain protections by putting it in, such as the 1 hour call out. They wanted to, but we negotiated the 1. So they want that protection, and we want to be able to protect the number of days. And, I won't call Kirk out specifically, but I kind of will. Kirk is our vacation guru, and he and Marcella have fought every step of the way the changes that they have been making to vacation, or I'm sorry, to sick time, not vacation. He's been fighting both. And so, when we would go back to the LECPs for approval on things, Kirk was adamant that we were going to go back to the 12 days. And that's where we started. And of course, it was not negotiable. There was no opportunity that we could get that without giving something that was going to be worse to flight attendants. I mean, potentially we could have taken something that would have been more detrimental, but wasn't an option as well. We wanted to continue to at least what it was, nothing worse, and lock that in. So all we left was being able to negotiate those little parts and pieces of it. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to add into that vacation piece. I know we talk about it each day, and I think to Tay's point, this is something that we should probably end up talking about each day as more people join us and hear the conversations, to reiterate what was happening and what we didn't want to have happen, and what we're actually able to get in the TA if it's ratified. Do you want to talk to that again today so that we have it again on the recording?
Well, Kirk has his hand up. Kirk, you want to talk?
Yeah. I just want to comment on it was very clear to the grievance committee, as well as myself as a local president, that it was extremely important that we have a attendance policy in the contract, that we get those 12 days back that we had previously. And very, very clear from the flight attendants group that that was the expectation in this TA, for to have a attendance policy. I went to the table personally and spoke passionately about that, and that It's extremely important. It's something the flight attendants expect and they deserve. They earn 12 days as part of their benefit package. We should be able to use the 12 days. So that's a bigger conversation there on their argument on their half. But anyway, that's just, it was definitely brought up and voiced strongly that it was something that's important to flight attendants, having those 12 days back.
We did push back every time.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there was no, you know, I've been at the table numerous times, and you could tell when they're adamant about something and what they'd rather see us strike than give us something. And this is one of those things. They would rather see us go on strike, get released after a 30-day cooling off period and go on strike than to give us our 12 days back.
Well, and I want to say that even just to get it in the contract at all, even with no changes, took almost a year. Like Dee Dee did not want to give up that level of control.
That was the last thing.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the last things on the
policy was the boarding priority was the very last thing.
That was the very last, yes. But the last 5 issues, one of them was the attendance policy. Yeah.
And since we brought up striking here and we talked about not being able to strike earlier in the conversation, just because this can be played back, I want to make sure that everyone understands striking is not an option in our contract. It's not an option in the industry, that it is prohibited by law unless you get past that cooling off period, which, Kelly, has anyone even gotten to that point?
Oh,
a lot of times.
Well, I mean, that's how Alaska, they got the way they got their contract that they have now, which was the Southwest contract, was in 1993. They got that after they had done some chaos strikes. So yeah, has anyone done it recently? America West, which tells you how long ago that was. That was like I don't know, before I started, so maybe the late 90s or early 2000s. Midwest Express, also going back to the 2000s. US Air, right around, that was one of my first assignments, was to go picket with them. But not recently, no. I mean, it's, the Railway Labor Board, or the National Mediation Board under the Railway Labor Act, by law consists of 3 members, 2 from the President's Party and 1 from the opposition party. So right now we have 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat on the board. And to our credit, the Democrat is a former president of AFA. And Trump, and I'm not trying to be political, I'm trying to be factual here. Trump is not going to release Horizon Airlines to go on strike anytime soon, especially not in the current environment. So I would not be looking at striking, honestly, as any kind of a legitimate option in the, so.
How many years did it take Alaska to be able to do that back in the 90s when they were doing chaos? Do you remember?
Well, I wasn't here. I was like, doing my other things back then.
That's okay.
I think they'd been in negotiations 3 years when they got released, and then they got the contract signed, I want to say in 94.
Wasn't that a Ray Vecchi?
That was Ray Vecchi.
Yeah. He's the one that gave him the Southwest contract.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was drunk when he signed that. So actually we have a video all about that. This is actually, I mean, it's grainy and it's old and you see some really cool hairstyles. But it's actually a really interesting video to watch. And if I can get a copy of that, we can post it because it's pretty cool. It might make your eyes water a little bit. All right, Jane's got a question.
Okay. Something talking about the commuter policy just also rang a question in my mind. So there was a discussion about, I'm not concerned about the registered commuter priority, the X5.
Okay.
But commuter policy in general. So for the X5, you have to fly from your address on file. For instance, I'm a commuter out of LA, but I don't live there. So has the commuter policy in general changed?
Yeah, everyone who is, yes, you have to fly out of your actual city, because the whole point of it is that it is commuting from home to work, whether you have the W-5 code or not. So that is a change.
Okay. Well,
I mean, that is what it's supposed to be now. They have not been paying attention to it, but it is actually supposed to be that now.
okay. So if you, I don't know if there's provision for temporary residency, but I'll
Well,
deal with that when time comes.
I mean, it's, yeah. I can't speak for what is your address on file or how that.
Well, my home address in Vancouver is on file. However, I commuted out of Mexico for a good 6 months plus. And because of technicality of the frequency of flights, I had to commute. My commuter city is LA. Otherwise, with infrequent flights, I would have to return 2 to 4 days prior to my show day.
Right.
Anyway, it's not that important. It probably is not going to be an issue in the future for me.
Okay.
So we did have a question about SAP come in. In the old SAP, you could drop a day trip. And the way that it looks now, you will not be able to drop a day trip. Can you talk to the changes in SAP now, the 4 versus 5 hours? And can you still drop a day trip?
Okay. So, yeah, in fact, now you can drop a day trip that's worth 5 instead of 4. I mean, like, this is an improvement. I'm not understanding, and I don't know, maybe it's the way the language is worded why that's confusing, but when we first got SAP back in the good old days, you could drop all the way down to min, right? Or your line to min. And now it's within 4 credits of your awarded line value. And with a new TA, it'll be 5. So if you are awarded a line worth 75, today you could drop to 71. After the new TA, you could drop to 70. So we've gotten that question a couple times, and maybe one of you guys that actually SAPs in as a flight attendant can explain why I'm not really understanding the concern there.
And maybe we'll make it a question of the day then and go through it. So maybe that's the best way to cover off on this one, is to make it the question of the day and put all the information
Because
out.
you don't have to drop 5. You can drop anywhere from 0 to 5.
That was covered in, I think, the Wednesday session, right? That is like that they bumped the day trips up to like 4.1 so that you couldn't drop it, and now you can, because you can drop anything between 4 and up to 5, right?
Right, but now they could. But yeah, so I mean, it's kind of a win-win, because they'd have to make, in order to prevent you from dropping a day trip now, they'd have to make it worth 5.1, right? Which would be good for everybody else, really. But so I don't know that they would be doing that, frankly.
I'll make a note to make it one of our questions. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. All right. Coming up on an hour and a half. Anyone have anything else?
Let me check email one more time. Let's see here. Nope, there's nothing in email and no hands. And we went through everybody's questions of what they might have been fed for questions. Jamie, nothing else that you can think of?
That's everything that I've received.
Okay. So tomorrow we're going to do the PowerPoint again at 12:30. We will not have Dan and Joe live, but we're going to try to share my screen and play that during the time where they would talk, their video from Wednesday. But otherwise, I mean, you're welcome to join again, those of you who weren't there, but it's not going to be significantly different because we're not taking questions. It's just going to be going through the PowerPoint again. And then starting on Sunday all the way through the following Tuesday, we'll be having these sessions every day at 12:30. So Lisa, got anything to add to that?
No, just thank you again to everyone for joining in.
Thank
and
you.
Also, thanks for the posts clarifying things as you're seeing them on Facebook. And please continue, Terry, I saw you urged people to dial in and be here. So, you know, we want people to come in and ask questions. We want this to get all of those questions answered so people understand the history and the background and how we got to where we are. You know, I just continue to urge people to join us on
I'm
these
trying.
Q&As. I know you are. I know. I appreciate
you know, they sit there and they bitch on Facebook, but they won't come to this
right.
and listen to the, you know, why the sick policy is being in there.
Right.
So, I mean, that would be a major point on Dee Dee wanting control and not putting it in there so she can continue to change it.
Right.
I mean, that's like a major point
So
right
make
there.
a note that that should be a question of the day as well.
So, I mean, if these people,
Sorry, I'm not trying to tell you what to do.
That's it.
so
I got it. All right. So we have sick policy and SAP. All right. We got both of them. Yeah. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been on Facebook fielding those types of questions and urging members to be in here with us on these sessions each day. So I appreciate it. All of us in the negotiation committee appreciate it. The LECPs appreciate it. So we'll just continue to try and nudge people to come in and ask questions. Nick, as you formulate more for reserve on the new language, you know, continue to bring those in because I know you're working with our reserve committee. So you having a really good understanding.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, that's good to know. That helps. Okay.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you need to understand the intent of the language. So, you know, when we're just sitting here together, getting a good understanding of the intent of the language for you, for people to file grievances and have those be good grievances for Kimberly and Kirk and Marcella to work on is great. So, I mean, while we have the time, it's the perfect opportunity for you to understand that.
Nick, do you talk with Julie at Alaska at all?
No.
Okay, because she's their reserve chair and she can help you a lot with this language as well as we go forward.
I would love to be put in contact.
Okay. Julie,
Actually, Nick,
I'll put you guys in touch.
Yes.
Nick, Melody was a former roommate of Julie's, so just reach out to Melody and
cool.
and they're already in contact with each other.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm not the only one. Melody has been doing this longer than I have. So
no, it's great. And I mean, this is the perfect opportunity for everyone to dial in that are working on these committees to understand the intent of the language in their articles that are pertinent to them. So, you know, if we don't have a lot of questions about other things, it's a wonderful time to be able to cover off on those for the other reps and the other chairs to really have a good understanding of their sections in the contract. So,
Kirk, did you want to add something? You had your hand up for a minute. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. It takes me a moment to unmute myself. We were talking about just getting educated. I mean, knowledge really is power, is the way to sum that up in a short, but it is. I see it with regards to how flight attendants are treated with the work rules at work. If flight attendants are familiar with the work rules, there's a lot of respect for management on that. They don't have as many issues. And same with this voting on this TA. If you know what you're voting on, there's a lot of power in that.
Yep. Well, thanks everybody. We will see everyone again on Sunday for Q&A. If you'd like to join us again, that would be fantastic. Make notes of those questions. The more things we can cover off on these, the better. And we'll be doing the presentation again tomorrow at 12:30. So thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.